Stand back, be silent, be still. That's it. And look upon this moment. Savor it. Rejoice with great gladness, great gladness. Remember it always, for you are joined by it. You are one under the stars. Remember it then, the night, this great victory, so that in the years ahead you can say, I was there that night with Arthur, the king, for it is the doom of men that they forget. And this is All Films Worth Watching. Thank you for tuning in. I am your co-host, Thomas Newby. Joining me is your other co-host, Jeff Young, book talk castle metal man extraordinaire. Today we're talking about the 1981 medieval epic Excalibur.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Jeff's pretty excited. This was, Jeff, that you were had some strong youthful associations with this, right? You were into this as a kid?
So I actually didn't see this movie for the first time until like 3 years ago. I had seen
okay.
clips and stuff as a kid and just like, other connotations through fantasy media like Quest for Camelot, Sword in the Stone, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think I actually saw this until like 2021 or 2022 for the first time.
And what was the context for that? Did somebody suggest it, or was it pandemic times and you were just out of things to watch?
I think I came across it on Amazon one night as I was like looking for something to watch, and I was like, well, I'm bored, I'll watch something. And it was like free on Prime or whatever at the time. So I was like, I've never seen this. Click. And of course, like the movie poster is amazing. Like everything I love about that like 80s Technicolor fantasy stuff. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to watch this. And I did.
Nice. Yeah, this is a first time watch for me. This is, to be honest, I don't have a ton of experience with like sword and sorcerer movies in general. Like when I was a kid, I didn't have anybody in my life that was super into that. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day because Conan the Barbarian was up in the background of a bar I was at. And I've never seen a Conan the Barbarian all the way through. Really, most of my experience with sword and sorcery movies are through like riff tracks and MST3K, like them making fun of the real bad ones, Yeah. So this was an experience. This was interesting.
Yeah, this one's nice in that it came out around the height of a lot of those sword and sorcery stuff. Like I think the first Conan with Arnold came out in like 82 or 83. And then you've got stuff like Beastmaster, Sorceress, stuff like that. Fire and Ice, with the Ralph Bakshi film from, I think it was like 86, where that stuff is decidedly campy and unserious. And this is a movie that like takes itself pretty seriously. And as a result is goofy as shit.
Yeah, it's definitely silly. You got to roll with the silliness. So I want to get into it. I'm excited to talk through the details, what I liked, what worked for me, and what didn't. But before we do that, I think we have some pretty important business to attend to. Jeff, next month is October, and I'm realizing this is our first October we're going through the podcast. It's interesting because because we only do this once a month, like whenever a holiday or a special event comes up, we only get like one shot to celebrate essentially through the thing. So like what we do for it's my choice, but what we do as our October movie feels important. Sure. So I just wanted to like take a minute because I would love to have it figured out by the end of the end of the podcast. I just want to take a minute before we jump into Excalibur to talk about what we're going to talk about next. Sure. Like maybe just have a quick conversation about like what your horror movie aesthetics are, what my horror movie aesthetics are, and then we can pick something at the end that scratches that itch, and it'll be a fun October movie,
Absolutely. Let's go.
Dope. Okay, so for me, there's kind of like a binary of horror movies and that work for me and don't work for me. And the ones that don't work for me are the slashers for slashers' sake. When I was a kid, especially, I was really like keyed into movies in a way that like gore would make me sick to my stomach. Sure. So that stuff didn't work for me as I was a kid. And then as I got older, I just kind of got like, I've watched most of the Jason movies a few years back with Erica. We just watched a bunch of slashers throughout the Halloween just to like do it because I hadn't done it and I don't think she had seen most of them. And there are some that have like an interesting perspective and an interesting viewpoint where you're like, oh, this is kind of an interesting commentary on like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is kind of a commentary on like the collapse of rural America in ways. If you look at it, it's like all of those horror things are amplifications of like what happens when you leave communities like those Texas farmers or whatever just to rot because the infrastructure has just abandoned them. You know what I mean? So there was something interesting going on there versus like Freddy, where you're like, oh, I'm watching, or Freddy is a little different, but like Jason especially, where those ones are like, it just feels like an excuse. It's like we're watching maybe a plot, maybe something that doesn't make sense, like really bad indie movies, but it's just like an excuse to get to the next kill. So what I'm watching is like, it's just like a series of kills as opposed to like an interesting story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what.
So a lot of yeah, for sure. And that's how like a lot of those slasher B movies made their money. They're like, we don't have to tell a story. We're giving you the kills, and it's what gets people in the room. And that's why there's like 13 of those, Jason slasher movies. But yeah, they don't work for me. I love a horror movie because it's usually a cheap budget and it's a way to explore an interesting concept. So like that's my main thing what I want from a horror movie is to, explore something. It doesn't have to like really plumb the depths. Like it can be kind of silly, but at least it's like exploring an option and not just like presenting me a bunch of gore.
Sure.
Yeah. So what about you, Jeff? What are your horror I almost said lynch points. That's not right. What am I talking about? Hang points. You know what I mean? Like your anchor points. The anchor points. That's what I'm looking for.
I kind of like a little bit of everything. I don't tend to care for like. I gotta be careful because like I do really like possession stuff and like demonic stuff. I was gonna say ghost stuff doesn't really work for me. I don't really care about that. I also generally don't care about zombies. I don't know if that's just like a cultural touchstone that's been done to death and I'm just not interested in it. But I just don't really care for zombies. I do like slashers. I do like things that are ultra violent. I'm into that. So stuff like the Saw movies I like. I like Friday the 13th. I like Nightmare on Elm Street. I have not seen the Halloween movies. But
based on our conversations, I have a feeling that at least the first Halloween movie is not going to float your boat. It's really a tone piece, and it's creepy, but in a way that like feels stilted, that I just have a feeling based on the couple of Carpenter movies we've watched together now is going to just kind of bounce off of you. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong about every Carpenter movie so far. So
that's fair. I did like In the Mouth of Madness. Sorry, I got something in my eye. I do think I tend to orient myself towards possession, demonic stuff. I like vampires. I like the slasher stuff. I like some creature feature things. I guess I'm not that picky when it comes to horror. I just want it to be done well. Or if it's like purposely bad, that's okay too, as long as it's like it's a nod. Like, have you ever seen there's this awful slasher movie made in the 80s called My Bloody Valentine? Have you ever seen that?
No, I've seen bits and pieces.
It's awful. I love that stuff, but they're crappy. So I guess I'm not that particular. So I'm pretty on board for, I guess, whatever you want to do.
Okay, cool. Have you seen any of the new horror movies that have come out this year? Like what of those have you seen?
I couldn't.
Even in the last couple of years. Let me think what comes to mind. The Monkey was one that came out this year.
I haven't seen that.
Sinners came out this year.
Didn't see that.
Nosferatu came out last December.
I did see Nosferatu.
Weapons just came out.
Don't think I've heard of it.
You haven't heard of Weapons? Have you heard of the movie Barbarian?
Yeah.
Have you seen Barbarian?
No.
Oh, okay. So those movies I think are like, talk about well done films. Both of those movies are written and directed by one of the guys from the Whitest Kids You Know, that sketch group.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it has that sort of thing where like I think people who start writing sketch and then move into horror movies, they write really tightly, interestingly scripted horror movies because like a really tightly scripted horror movie and a really tightly scripted sketch like are doing a lot of the same things, but you're just kind of like tweaking the levels. So that is definitely worth considering. Do you know anything about that movie Barbarian that I just mentioned? You said you've heard of it. Do you know anything about the plot?
Something like an Airbnb gone wrong or something.
Sure. Cool.
That's about the extent of my knowledge. I like the poster. I'll tell you that. The aesthetics are cool, but I don't know anything about it really.
And both those movies, both Weapons and Barbarian, are so much. The less you know about it, the better you are. I went and saw. Yeah, I'm really leaning towards picking Barbarian. Went and saw, or I think I watched Barbarian at home. I went and saw Weapons in the theater. But Barbarian I saw because a bunch of podcasters at the same time were like, I love this movie. It's great. I'm not going to tell you a single thing about it because the less you know, the better, the more you're going to enjoy it. And like a bunch of people whose tastes I trust all at the same time were like, you should check this out and you should do it before somebody spoils it for you.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think the last horror movie I saw was Longlegs at your recommendation.
Yeah. And did you like Longlegs?
I liked a lot of the parts of Longlegs. I hated Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I feel you. The Monkey is by that guy, Perkins, Osgood Perkins, I think is his name. Yeah, and people, it's been pretty hit or miss for people. I really like it. There's some stuff that, you know, if I was like king of the world, I'd make some adjustments with, but I generally enjoyed the ride. But some people really didn't. In the same way that I think like Legs worked for a lot of people and like really didn't work for me. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, I liked Longlegs. I think just Nicolas Cage was too much. It was. I think his energy didn't match the rest of the film, and it was like jarring. And I was like, why is he so over the top? I don't get it. But I just think a more subdued character would have been more dangerous and scary. But
yeah,
Perkins going to take my notes. Yet.
Yeah, because he doesn't have to, I suppose.
He doesn't have to.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. I'm gonna put this on the back burner. I'm gonna let it froth up into a delicious gumbo of horror that we will decide by the end of the show. Okay. Let's get back into Excalibur. Okay, so I'm gonna let you kind of lead the way today, Jeff. But here's the things that I do know, just based on a little bit of research that I did. 1981 film. It's directed, co-written, and produced by the same guy. So it seems kind of like a passion of love. Apparently, this is like a big part of Irish cinema history, the history of Irish cinema. Like this is one of those movies that helps sort of establish the business that later on.
Irish people in this movie who like went on to become very famous, and this was like an early movie in their career for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And just sort of like setting Ireland up as a destination to make films, like this sort of a sweeping epic film. You know what I mean?
In Ireland too, yeah.
Yeah. It's like a ground up production there, but it's sort of like I guess, and I mean I'm just reading this through Wikipedia, so I could be wrong. And if you happen to be listening or watching us and know more about it, I'd love to know more know more about the situation. So feel free to share with us. But the vibe that I get is that they essentially created a bunch of the Irish film infrastructure while making this movie. And then that's the stuff that's been like, fed into over the years. And so like, without this, we might not have ever gotten to our Game of Thrones and stuff like that, because sort of the seeds for that sort of infrastructure were put in place long ago. It's sort of the same with like Australian cinema and the Mad Max movies. Yeah, where he like took that money and put that into Australian cinema, and then now there's like a thriving small scene there that occasionally breaks out across the pond, but also like, they make like interesting TV over there for themselves, Yeah. So that's what I know about it. I know it was it was fun watching these guys fight each other, and every now and then it would look like they're like smacking each other with fake mallets. Those are my favorites, where they would like chase each other around, would get a little silly.
Oh, the fight choreo in this movie is terrible. Like
there are moments when there are moments when it really works and it looks elegant, but more times than not, it'll be like moments that sort of work, and then there'll be a section of like a guy chasing another guy like around in a circle in a way that like is super silly and is also like it's I don't think they're doing it on purpose here. I think they're trying to make things look epic and sweeping, and it's coming across as silly. But I think it actually kind of makes an interesting point about medieval combat. You know,
Sure.
like combat in this sort of way where you like wrap each other up with like the heaviest things that you can find and bash at each other until one of you splits in two is like the dumbest, like the you know what I mean, like the dumbest, most I don't know. It just has there's a silliness to it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like the moments in Game of Thrones, as an example, just as a comparison, that really work for me are the moments that like point out some of the silliness of that hand-to-hand combat, and then also like siege warfare too. Like every now and then where you're like, this is like the silly, stupid part of being locked into a castle or locking this guy into a castle for 15 years. You know, these are the weird consequences that if you're not there, you wouldn't be thinking about necessarily.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I think this movie accidentally backs into some of that. Just by like having those weird little chase scenes where suddenly it's like, this looks silly. You two look like clowns chasing each other with like big mallets, because that's essentially what you're doing. You're like Tom and Jerrying each other until one of you is crushed to death.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the combat is pretty terrible. And I think some of that is we have the benefit of, at least in like the last 25, 30 years, incredibly good fight choreo in movies. Yeah. Where like, you know, the fighting in something like the Game of Thrones or the Guy Ritchie King Arthur movie, or like the Robin Hood movie that Ridley Scott made. Like that's all, you know, medieval fight choreo, and it's amazing. It's so good. It's very grippy. And this, I don't think had a fight choreographer. I think this was, hey, Patrick Stewart, kick this guy, and then they did. It's very, very silly. It reminded me of like high school drama fight choreo, where it's like you guys just go there and slap at each other for a bit. And so I think at the time it was probably super cool, but the fight choreo specifically doesn't hold up. A lot of this movie ages very weirdly, but
yeah, for sure.
Okay, let me run you through the plot. Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm going to run through the plot today because I'm familiar with Excalibur.
Hell yeah. So, I'm going to interject every now and then.
Please
and disrupt the flow.
Yeah, do it.
It's going to be fun. I'm going to do a good job at it.
So,
okay, I'm done. I'm sorry.
One thing to interject with before I start is that most people don't know this, but Merlin is a title, not his name. He is the Merlin. Merlin is a position. But this just refers to him as Merlin instead of the Merlin, so just keep that in mind.
Okay, so sorry, I know I'm already leading us off track. If that's the case, how many Merlins have there been? How long does a Merlin typically last?
I don't know.
So we don't know which Merlin we're talking to, like Merlin 8 or Merlin 2?
I have no idea. I don't think it works like popes.
What if they're... Well, is it more like the Ku Klux Klan where there's two like grand wizards that are like run different, you know what I mean? Like, is he England's Merlin? Is there an Italian Merlin?
I think Merlin is the equivalent of like the wizardiest wizard. I don't...
so it's like, so it is like the Pope. It's like the king.
Well, sure, but I don't think
wizard.
They're like your Pope Jeff the Fourth. I think they just whoever is the Merlin is just Merlin. It'd be like calling the Pope just, hey Pope.
So is it more like a gunfighter thing? Like he's the Merlin, and so he's just like
quickest
he gets
wand in the land.
Yeah, quickest wand in the West. Yeah.
Anyways, fun fact. I don't really know more about it than that, but just from the other Arthurian stuff I've read, it's always referred to as the Merlin, and his name is not Merlin. But
interesting. Yeah, I did not know
sheriff, that. I guess, like, you know, most people just call the sheriff, hey sheriff, but whatever. Anyways, in the Dark Ages, the sorcerer Merlin retrieves the magical sword Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake for Uther Pendragon, who is declared king. In exchange for their future child, Merlin helps Uther seduce Igraine, the Duke of Cornwall's wife, while the Duke dies in battle. Igraine gives birth to Arthur, and Merlin takes the boy. Ambushed by the Duke's men, a dying Uther thrusts Excalibur into a stone, as Merlin declares that he who pulls the sword from the stone shall be king. So this scene is super funny to me because, like, Uther and the Duke of Cornwall are fighting over some land. And as they're fighting, Merlin and Uther go get Excalibur from the Lady in the Lake, who is kind of just like a hand. but it's also like the iconic imagery of this film is her very slowly holding this sword up through the water, and it's Technicolor and beautiful.
Yeah, the Lady of the Lake stuff worked for me really well.
Yeah, it's super cool. And so he gets Excalibur, and basically he goes to the Duke of Cornwall and is like, hey, I have Excalibur. I'm in charge now. And then Duke of Cornwall's like, okay, I will give up, but what will you give me? And Uther says, I'll let you keep all of your land. As Merlin's like on the side, like, hey, you need to make a deal with him. Like, he's going to agree with you. Like, he gave something, you give something. So then they go to this party at the Duke of Cornwall's castle. And the Duke of Cornwall, whose wife is Igraine, is like, Igraine, come dance for my friends. And then as she comes and does this, like, weird, terrible belly dance thing that wasn't really a belly dance and it wasn't really like a jig, it just kind of like flip her skirts around. Uther decides that their truce is worth nothing to him and he must have Igraine. She dances, he's like, I must have her. It's so funny. And then it's like, I forget who the knight next to him is, but it's like, Uther, no, the truce, the peace, you can't do that. And he's like, I must. So that night, they break the truce and Uther attacks the Duke of Cornwall's castle in a siege. And in this, Merlin uses a spell to turn Uther into the appearance of Cornwall so that he can basically go S.A. Igraine, which is a pretty awful thing to do, but not that far removed from 80s fantasy movies. So that's fair play.
Yeah, for sure.
It super sucks.
That was the scene where it was like behind, they do it with a background of like burning fire.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like a wall of fire. Yep. There are some scenes in this where I think there's some interesting low budget things about this that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. One thing that I think is pretty interesting is that they just kind of like shine green lights onto the sword to make it look magic-y, which makes sense to me. But then occasionally they also will like have overhead green lights that are reflecting off of suits of armor in scenes that like it. I was like, oh, I thought the green light meant that this was magic, but if it's just happening to this guy while he's walking through the woods, maybe you just are using green lights. I wasn't. Right. There was a little some inconsistencies there that was like, you know, it was fun with the budget, but there was a little bit of a stuck in my craw, just like what kind of a story are we telling with those? And then there were some times where they were like in the darkest of night and they just have like black where they're in a sound stage and there'll be like a wall of fire behind them while the essay is going on, while that assault is going on, or they'll be like riding through trees and it'll just be smoke and trees in a sound stage. And those moments I thought were really fun. Yeah,
this movie is aesthetically very cool and not super cohesive. Like it kicks like scene by scene, this movie kicks ass visually. Like I think that's the important part of this movie is just like the cinematography and the set design and the costumes. Like it just looks awesome, and like some of the effects are hokey but pretty cool. Like like as far as that stuff goes, this movie's awesome.
I totally agree. My biggest complaint about these first 20 minutes was when we finished them, I was like, I don't, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I missed some connections. I don't know why we didn't get this 20 minutes as like a really beautiful flashback told in like a minute or two. You know what I mean? Like this origin, other than it like telling the whole sweeping origin story, I was like, I don't understand how these things that we're hearing right now affect any of the story later on in a way that like living it. Yeah. So it's just like, I mean, it's like screenwriter brain. You want to start like as late as possible. I think if I was doing a draft of this and I was like, you know, if I was getting to rewrite things, I would probably start with him as an adult, maybe even king. Like, I think that you could probably get away with him telling somebody his whole origin story, or somebody being like, here's the story of King Arthur, all the way up until he's king. Because really, all of the conflict from him as a baby all the way up to him becoming king, there's no real inherent conflict to any of it, because it's like, fight me and you can be King Arthur. And it's like, well, duh, I know he's going to be King Arthur. So like, I know he's not going to lose this. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, I personally didn't get into any conflict that was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, until Lancelot and Guinevere start making googly eyes to each other in the second act.
The dramatic part of the first part of this movie is when Uther begs Merlin to cast the glamour on him. Merlin's like, okay, but I get whatever comes of this. And Uther, like, you know, with all of the blood in his nethers, isn't paying attention. Is like, yeah, sure, whatever, fine. I want to go do the thing. Let's do the thing. Merlin, I think, fully realizing that he's like, hey, there's going to be a kid and that kid's mine. And then obviously the 15 seconds of Uther and Igraine being like, no, my child, I don't want to give up my child. And then he immediately, he like thinks about it for about 4 hard seconds and then gives the baby to Merlin, and then Merlin scoots off. And like, that's kind of the plot of that first section.
I did have a question about that scene. So what's the man's name in the scene, the father of those?
Uther Pendragon.
It's Uther Pendragon.
Yep.
Okay. So Uther hands that baby to him, and then he's sort of hitting the pillar that's next to him, and he's sort of like punching at the air. And I was like, okay, so is he trying to act enraged in a situation where he can't like punch that pillar because the pillar is made of plaster and it will fall over? Or is this like a magic? I couldn't tell if it was some sort of a weird curse. Like he was so like disjointed in that one moment that it was like, I could maybe buy if this was some part of the magic that's going on in the moment.
I think he's being careful.
Would you just clarify?
Of the set pieces.
Okay, yeah, I was like, that's what my first instinct is, but maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and maybe this is like some magic kicky dance he's having to do.
I think he's just being careful not to destroy John Borman's $11 million set.
For sure. The one thing I'll say before we move on from this section, I was impressed just by the amount of people during the opening war combat scenes. They would have like, horse after horse after horse fly across the screen in the background, and like armies like smashing into each other. And for me, I was like, oh, this is already giving my money's worth. Like, you just don't see that many people on sets these days.
The coordination
if they can't like
cool.
copy and paste them.
Yeah. The scale of this movie is pretty awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, he definitely didn't spare any expenses on this and a lot of that like big scene fight stuff. This is also this first scene really sets for me the tone of the acting of this movie, which is like cranked to 13. Like there's no subtlety, there is no grace in the acting in this movie. It is all just like everyone chugged a Red Bull and then went in to do the scene. It's all cranked to 11. It's so good.
And on top of that, the way it's written, there's no, in my opinion, I didn't see any subtext at all until we got to Lancelot and Guinevere having a little bit of lust, and then they immediately talk about that.
Yeah.
So it was like less than 30 seconds of subtext.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody's just like, I feel happy. I am angry at you. We must fight now.
Yeah. So Merlin entrusts Sir Ector to raise Arthur, who becomes the squire to Ector's biological son, Sir Kay. As a young man, Arthur pulls Excalibur from the stone, proving he is Uther's rightful heir. Leodegrance pledges his allegiance to Arthur, but they are opposed by knights who dispute Arthur's kingship as a bastard. Defending Leodegrance's castle and his daughter Guinevere, Arthur defeats Uriens, whom he compels to knight him and swear fealty. Smitten with Guinevere, Arthur ignores Merlin's warning that she will one day fall in love with someone else. So this scene is like the exact same from like the Disney's Sword in the Stone. Arthur is Kay's squire. He forgets his sword. He runs back to camp to look for a sword, doesn't find one. He sees the sword in the stone, which just happens to be like chilling around wherever these guys are doing this shit. And he's like, oh, I need this sword. Whoomp, straight out of the stone. And like, oh my God, I think I'm the king now. And the rest of it is basically as I described. He pulls the sword. They're like, put it back and do it again. And then other people try and they can't. And he does it. And everyone's like, oh my God, a king. We have a king.
I thought that was so funny that he pulled it out and just like hands it to that guy. And they're like, put it back. I'd be like, no, I already pulled it out.
Yeah, he puts it back. And that other guy's
like, I'm sorry you were here. I pulled it out.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, I can't get it out. And Arthur's just like, shrink. And they're like, that's the king. And they're like, that's not the king. That's a bastard. The bastard can't be the king. And then, yeah.
I just kept thinking it would be so funny if he went back to try it again and it didn't work. And I'm like, guys, I swear it worked last time. How would I have had it in my hands?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I also really loved that Leodegrance is played by Patrick Stewart, like pre-Star Trek, I think, like international fame Patrick Stewart. And he's still like 40 or 41 years old in this movie. So he's like fully an adult, but his acting is some of the best in this whole movie. Like he has that like Shakespearean thing going on without being like a goof ass. And I really loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going by Wikipedia here, but it says this is basically the start of the careers of him and Liam Neeson and
Gabriel Byrne.
Helen Mirren.
Gabriel Byrne. Yeah. Kieran Hines is in this movie. Like it's got a lot of people. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so basically Arthur wins the hearts of millions, or at least dozens. and he falls in love with Leodogrance's daughter, Guinevere. Years later, the undefeated knight Lancelot almost bests Arthur, who calls upon the power of Excalibur to defeat Lancelot, breaking the sword. The Lady of the Lake restores the sword to a remorseful Arthur, and Lancelot swears allegiance to him. Unifying the land, Arthur and his knights create the Round Table in the castle Camelot. Secretly infatuated with each other, Lancelot escorts Guinevere to her wedding to Arthur, declaring that his loyalty to the king outweighs his love for her. Arthur's half-sister Morgana, who Igraine had with the Duke of Cornwall. Arthur's half-sister Morgana reveals to Merlin that she is a sorceress, and Lancelot brings Percival, who hopes to become a knight, to Camelot. So this is that scene where Arthur is like riding through the land, and Lancelot's on the other side like, "You shall not pass until you have bested me in combat." And it's stupid, but it's fun because Arthur, like, Lancelot kicks his ass and Arthur just gets more and more mad until he uses the sword to cheat, and then the sword breaks. Sad.
What I thought was interesting, this is another one of those like screenwritery nitpicky things. I thought it was interesting that he uses the sword, it immediately breaks, he immediately learns his lesson, and the lady chucks the sword immediately back to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all like 2 minutes of
so fast.
It takes him 2 minutes to learn the error of his ways. It just felt like super after school specially. You know, where it was like, wow, he's just like on top of it. All right. And I just love that it's like he throws the sword away and 2 minutes later, the lady's like, "Oh, okay, I think you figured it out," and hooks it back to him.
There's no prompting or anything. It mostly is like,
he figures it out all by himself.
He goes, "Merlin, I broke the sword. I used it against its purpose. I've renounced my vows as a knight. I've done a bad thing." And he's like, "Chuck it into the lake, throw it into the water." And he throws it in. And then, she immediately hands it back. Except we see her whole body this time because she's like floating in the water with it and like holds it up.
And again, a really cool effect.
Yeah.
Like I love all of that Lady of the Lake stuff. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. So Arthur makes a lifelong friend. They form the Round Table. Camelot becomes a thing. And then this plants the seeds of Lancelot and Guinevere. But Lancelot's like a really good friend, and he's like, "Hey, I can't. As sweet as the fruit might be, it's not as good as the fruits of friendship." And this is also where we meet Percival, who like at some point in the night attempts to like rob Lancelot, and that's how they meet. And then we meet Morgana. Influenced by Morgana, Gawain, which is Liam Neeson, drunkenly accuses Guinevere of betraying the king, and a duel over her innocence is set. Resolved to uphold the law as an impartial judge, Arthur cannot defend Guinevere's honor himself. When no champion will fight for the queen, Percival steps forward, but Lancelot arrives and defeats Gawain, sparing his life. Retreating to the forest, Lancelot is followed by a deeply moved Guinevere, and they make love. Merlin confirms this to Arthur, who thrusts Excalibur into the ground between the sleeping lovers. Merlin's magical link to the land impales him on the sword, as Morgana traps him and steals his charm of making. I love that they just fight a duel over her not being a cheater, and then she immediately goes and does it. I was like, that's so silly. Like, they just had this like big fight where he's like, "No, she would never betray you. She didn't, and I'll fight to prove it." And then immediately they both do that. I think that's like, I was like, you guys are so stupid.
Totally. Okay, so quick question, a point of clarification. Before Lancelot shows up to fight to defend Guinevere's honor, he gets like stabbed by some sort of a magic armor in the forest, and he ends up like naked and impaled. Can you tell me what you think is supposed to be happening there? Was that a Morgana spell? Was that his own guilt? Like, what was going on? Like, why? Because it's a person at first, but then he goes to look into he stabs that other person who if I'm remembering this right, he like is suddenly naked in the forest, like without his armor on, and then he gets attacked by another suit of armor that has a face onto it, but after he kills him, he opens it up and there's nothing there. It's like an empty suit of armor that attacked him. Is that right?
Yes. I think it's Morgana trying to hurt him so that he can't fight in the duel against Gawain to defend Guinevere.
Gawain the Knight Johnson?
Yeah, Gawain the Rock Johnson. But that's how I interpret that. I'm not positive, but that's what I think.
Okay, cool. It was a little ambiguous, but that makes sense. I mean, who else would do it? The evil warlock makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Morgana being the stunning Helen Mirren, who's I think like 34, 35 in this movie. Like, it's weird to see her so young and to know that she was like doing stuff before this even. Like, you see her now, you're like, oh, she's amazing. But yeah, like back when she was young, I was like, that's crazy. Also, her acting's really good in this movie too. It's not like super over the top like everybody else.
Yeah, no, it felt, I mean, as grounded as you can be to be an evil witch.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt pretty solid.
Yeah, I feel like the people who had strong Shakespearean backgrounds like really nailed this, and all the people who didn't were just like crazy.
I should say that around this time in the film, I wrote a note that says this movie's lucky I find bad ADR charming.
Yep.
Because it is some rough ADR. So if that's something that like sticks in your craw, might be a skippable one, because I just think, well, I mean, it's, you know, they have like a fight under a waterfall or whatever, and then the ADR just like is like, oh, that's definitely not in front of that waterfall. You know, that's not even like, that might not even be the same voice. You know, like there might even be actors who have like their entire voices taken out. It's one of those that has that early 80s clunkiness too.
Yeah, a lot of times like the expressions don't match the volume of the person who's shouting, and you're like, what? But
yeah, like somebody's smoldering and going for something like intimate, and then they're like, we actually need it to sound like this.
Yeah. That happens with Merlin for me a lot, where like he'll be looking at someone and he has this kind of like this expression going on, but then the voice is like so loud. It's like that doesn't match. Taking Guinevere's form, Morgana seduces Arthur and gives a birth to... Sorry, let me try that one again. Taking Guinevere's form, Morgana seduces Arthur and gives birth to a son, Mordred, infecting the land with famine and sickness. So in a reversal of fate, like how Uther used a spell to seduce Igraine, Morgana does the same thing with Arthur. Who's like her brother? Gross.
Yeah, which she like immediately calls out. She's like, congratulations, you just banged your sister.
Yeah, she's like, we're going to have a
like,
son, brother. It's like, oh, gross.
Rude.
But the thing I skipped over in the last bit was when Arthur drives his sword into the ground, it like severs Merlin's like magical link to like the spine of the dragon is the source of his magic powers, and it severs the spine of the dragon, and he basically gets by Morgana. Struck by a magical bolt of lightning, a weakened Arthur sends his knights to search for the Holy Grail, hoping to restore the land and himself. Many knights die on their quest or are bewitched into Morgana's service, but Percival resists her attacks. Mordred reaches adulthood, and his mother gifts him a golden suit of armor that she has enchanted so that no weapon made by man can pierce it. Mordred demands Arthur's crown, but Arthur can only offer him his love as his father, which is the only thing Mordred doesn't want from him, vowing to take Camelot by force. So the first time we see Mordred, he's in that golden suit of armor as a child that like covers everything except his mouth. And I was like, what kind of weird little like woodland sprite is this? And then it's just like this little shitty blonde kid who ends up being Mordred. But that scene freaked me out. I was like, I don't like that mask. It creeps me out.
I just had a problem with the golden mask all the way through. It was a little weird there, and then when he's an adult, it looked like it was made of paper mache. It was like, this is the golden armor that cannot be pierced by any man-made thing. And I'm like, yeah, but it looks like you made it out of glue and newspaper.
She used all her magic.
Like, there's no like,
it, man. She ain't got nothing left.
Yeah, mommy made it special.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So, unable to save Uriens from Mordred, Percival is attacked by Lancelot, who has renounced his knighthood. Nearly drowned, Percival is transported to the Grail and proves himself worthy, bringing the Grail to Arthur. He drinks from the Grail and is revitalized along with the land, calling upon Kay to rally the remaining forces against Mordred. Arthur finds Guinevere at a convent and they reconcile before she gives him back Excalibur. I don't remember how she got Excalibur. I think it was when he stabbed it into the ground. I think she kept it. But that part, I was like, damn, when did she get it? At Stonehenge, Arthur's love liberates Merlin and they share a final conversation. Merlin tricks Morgana into speaking the charm of making, exhausting her powers and enveloping the battlefield in mist. Mordred discovers...
She burps out a bunch of mist.
Yeah.
It's like she ate a really, really, really hot pepper.
Mordred discovers his now haggard, aged mother, murdering her in disgust. Helen Mirren gets all like old and gross, and he's like, "Oh God, this cannot be!" And like chokes her to death.
Yeah, that's a little rough.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, mom, you're ugly
Yeah.
now.
He's like, no.
It's like, maybe don't choke your mom because she gets ugly, because like most people are going to get ugly, guy.
Yeah.
It's like, relax.
Yeah, this part of the movie is, and maybe like a little bit before, about when Mordred comes in the movie, I'm like, this movie's long. Like, this is a long
Yeah, this is when I was
movie.
about to feel it. We're like, oh, we're gonna have some more battles.
Yeah.
Huh? We had some epic battles about nothing at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that was my thing. I was like, we already did battles. We don't need to do more battles. We're
There's way
fine.
more battles.
Yeah.
So Arthur and his men battle Mordred's forces using the mist in their favor. Lancelot comes to Arthur's aid, reconciling with his friend and dying a true knight. At the battle's end, only Arthur, Percival, and Mordred remain alive. In single combat, Mordred mortally wounds Arthur, running him through with a spear, but Arthur slides down the spear's shaft and stabs Mordred through the heart with Excalibur, a weapon not made by a man, killing him. Arthur commands Percival to throw Excalibur into the water, which he doesn't. He rides all the way to the water and is like, no, and goes back to Arthur. And then Arthur's like, did you throw it into the water? And he's like, yes. No, I couldn't. And he's like, go back and throw it into the water. So he throws it in. The lady that like catches it in some pretty crappy special effects now, but probably very, very cool in 1981. He throws it.
Yeah, reversing the footage. It looks pretty,
like,
works for me. Just like, ka-ching.
yeah, it's cool. And then, the reverse of when she brings it up, she pulls it back into the water. The Lady of the Lake catches the sword and disappears, and Percival watches as Arthur is carried away on a ship toward Avalon. I was like, how the fuck does he get on this boat? What?
It's just that sneaky Merlin, man. Just always in the background, always making stuff happen. I assume Merlin has this thing in this movie where, like, I mean, and he's, this actually happens as Merlin in a couple of the bad MST3K movies that I've seen too, where he'll be just like farting around in the background of like somebody else is having a thing going on, and he's like kicking a wheel. He's like kicking a tire down the road with a stick, and it's like, oh, well, let me tell you something about the magic of this place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's sort of like what the like the magical black person trope.
Oh, sure.
That shows up in like in later movies becomes, he's like that kind of a thing. He's like just always kind of there and has some like old timey wisdom. The other thing is that he's telling you exactly what's going on all the time. So anytime it's like the magic is weird, and he's like, well, it's because we didn't do this and we've got to do this, and so you got to go throw the thing into the thing.
Yeah.
That same thing where, like, again, not the most tightly written story in the world. No. You probably don't need Merlin to tell you exactly what you have to do every time and why. Like, you know what I mean? It just this was a really fun tone piece, a story. I mean, especially knowing the Arthur legend already, I don't feel like I shed any new light on that story. So if you know the story, if you've seen any sort of Arthurian legend in any other form, don't expect anything new from there. But this was a fun piece of low budget indie filmmaking.
It's awesome.
That was a lot of fun.
It's about half an hour too long, but it's awesome. Like, I watched this movie just for the vibe. It's like this movie's very smooth brain energy for me. I'm like, don't think about it, just enjoy it. Like, just watch it. And it's like, I get a kick out of the aesthetics of this movie. Like as a person, this movie is very influential for me aesthetically. The story is, it's the Legend of Arthur. Nothing new. It's been done. It's like, if you want to laugh harder, go watch Monty Python. But like, if you want the cool visuals, it's absolutely Excalibur. This movie visually is like my favorite thing. But as far as being like a tightly written movie, it's not it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool, man. Well, that's basically my rating. I would say it's worth watching, with the caveat that you maybe don't need to watch all of it. I would say you could easily get everything that you needed out of this movie while skipping either the first or the last 20 minutes. And I would say probably the last, because I really liked the opening. Yeah. But either way, you could skip around a little bit, see maybe a hyper cut on YouTube of the Lady in the Lake scenes and some of the fight sequences, and get a real strong sense of what's going on.
Yeah, I've seen highlight
clips not into it.
On YouTube of people who've like, this is all the iconic imagery from this movie. Just go watch that and you'll get what we're talking about. But if you've got 2.5 hours to kill on like some gummies or something, this movie kicks ass. It's awesome. But if you're like stone sober looking to be really entertained, it's not gonna hold up.
Fair enough. Totally. Sick. All right. Well, so Jeff, last time we started this document where we're talking about all films worth watching, the do's and the don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out of this, do you have any new rules that we need to add to that document? Any new hard lines in the sand that we need to draw?
I don't think so in terms of like this movie, and I think that comes from I give this movie a lot of leeway for being how old it is and how like innovative it is. It does some bad things. It's like my biggest problem with this movie is just too long. Like I think like you said, the first 30 minutes of this could have been told in like some succinct flashbacks. I don't think we needed the full 2 hours and 20 minutes of this movie. It's too long, but I don't know. It's ambitious. I like it. I can't really criticize it other than get a tight editor. Like so maybe here's the rule. If it's not something that has to be shown, find another way. Like if you don't have to, if it could be a flashback or like what's those called?
A montage?
I was like mirage? No. Collage? No.
A mirage?
If it could be something that could be a montage or something like that, I think that's beneficial. I think it would be cooler to like have Arthur see this for himself, like when he learns like I'm the king, who wasn't like, because he does that, like he lives like, what do you mean you're not my dad? Like they have that, but it could have been cool like coming back as like a flashback through Merlin or something, telling him this stuff rather than us watching it and then it being explained to him again later. So like they kind of double up on some of the exposition in here, and I think they could skip that. So yeah, I guess if you don't have to show us, don't. Like I guess just you like earn your minutes, I guess.
Yeah, maybe something like films worth watching, show rather than tell.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, and this movie does both.
Cool.
It shows and tells. And
I
don't need both.
Yeah, good call. Fair enough. I like it. It's added to the rules. Marking it in. I mean, I'm not literally doing it now, but I'll do it later.
What about you? You got rules from here?
I don't think so. This, I think that's a good thought. And yeah, being like sensitive to your time. But that being said, I think that this movie doesn't break that rule and is still worth watching in the right context.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So yeah, no, I think the idea that that a film worth watching needs to be sensitive to how much of your time it's taking, is probably a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. In the same way, like when I'm thinking about like reviewing books and stuff, page count is something I think about. I think like, did this book justify 600 pages? Like, is there 600 pages of story here? And I think the same thing, like, earn your minutes. Like if you're going to give me 2 hours, it better be 2 tight hours, So one thing that we talked about in the pre-production for this call was the overuse of Carmina Burana in this movie. It's all over the place. I think I counted at least 3 different scenes where it comes in. And I love it. Like, it gets my hackles up. I'm like, yeah, let's kick ass. But I'm also like, it's the same bit. I think it's the same piece of Carmina Burana several times.
For sure. And if you're not familiar, Carmina Burana is the piece of classical music with the choir, the ba 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 ba.
And it kicks ass the first time. And then the second time you're like, again, okay, cool. Third time you're like, oh, they're just going to do this every time something important is happening. Like, oh, okay, cool. Riding through the forest, kicking ass, doing king stuff. Bum, 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 boom, bum, bum. Like, I love it. But it is goofy.
It is fun. I have a feeling, based on the budget of this movie, which is something like it's an $11 million movie, and I think it made like $35 million at the time internationally, which is good. But for $11 million is not a lot not a lot for like this many people riding around on horseback.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a lot of stuff to coordinate. So I would guess that it would be cheaper. It was cheaper for them to get the rights to use Carmina Burana 4 times than it was to get another like 3 pieces of music. You know what I mean? And so they're like, all right, we've got the one and we're going to use the shit out of it, which you'll see like TV shows sometimes will do that, where they like pay for a bit of pop music, and then you'll hear that same piece of pop music like 13 times in the episode as like a signifier. And it's like, that's partially because that's a funny joke, but it's also because once you've bought it, it's way cheaper to use it, pieces of it 2 more times than it is to not, you know?
And another thing I want to call out about this movie is that it was, I don't know if it was like necessarily critically acclaimed at the time, but it got a lot of recognition for its visual effects. And I think it was nominated for an Oscar or a BAFTA for like visual effects and costuming. The costumes in this movie, for the most part, are pretty terrific. And like some of the visual effects are very cool. And I think it got nominated at Cannes for something. I forget exactly what.
Yeah, that's what I saw too.
But like, yeah, people liked this movie. It's a highlight of certainly Irish cinema, but I think just kind of like the fantasy genre of film for good reason.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, in my opinion, definitely a film worth watching. You probably only need to see it once, but I think you should see it.
Yeah, worth checking out once. Cool. Hi, Jeff. Yeah, I don't have any other opinions on it. I'm ready for my recommendation. Yeah, while I was watching this, I was really keying into, in particular, the broad sweeping pastoral stuff out there in the Irish fields was kind of cool, but the soundstage stuff I thought was really fun. And that's like the budget filmmaker in me, but just the surreal quality of taking it into taking these moments into like a blank space with like an infinite black behind them. I thought that was a really, really, really cool effect. And I think another movie that does that really well is Joel Coen's The Tragedy of Macbeth that came out a few years ago. Have you seen that? That was the Coen brothers. Joel Coen is one of the Coen brothers. That's the first movie that either of them made solo, and it's a pandemic. It's a pandemic thing. It was shot during the pandemic on mostly a sound stage, and it's basically like a really interesting, really thoughtful retelling of Macbeth. Let me think. I'm so bad with names. Who is the star? Oh my God, Denzel Washington as Macbeth. Oh. Frances McDormand as his wife, and just a great cast around it. But it's it's like the surreal moments of this. It's like if the movie is like made almost entirely of that.
Okay.
They're like wandering around in these like this sort of impressionistic castle where they're doing their intrigue, where just none of it feels real. It's all in black and white, and there's just like these infinite blacks. I think there's like 1 or 2 shots that are not on a sound stage. It's fascinating, and it's a really, because it's the tragedy of Macbeth. It's a really, interesting, well thought out story, and it's in the hands of one of the Coens, so it's done really well. This was the first movie that Erica and I saw back in movie theaters mid-pandemic. So it has a special place for me, but it's definitely worth checking out. That's 2021's The Tragedy of Macbeth, written, directed, and produced by Joel Coen.
Hot dang.
Yeah, worth it. What you got for me, Jeff?
I would say, if you're interested in this movie, if you haven't seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, go watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's a given. I think everyone should see that movie at least once. It's so good.
Monty Python, I have a criticism of Monty Python that I've never had with another movie, where I laugh so hard at the first half of Monty Python that by the end of the movie, I'm just like laughed out sometimes. Where it's like, this would be funnier if I was watching this for the first time, but I've just been like, you've made me laugh so hard up to here that I'm tired. I need a nap.
Yeah. I have two recommendations besides Monty Python. Beastmaster from the 80s. Like if Excalibur is one of the good like sword and sorcery fantasy movies from the 80s, go watch Beastmaster. The second one would be Ridley Scott's Robin Hood, which is long, as all Ridley Scott movies are, but Russell Crowe is Robin Hood, and it sets itself up as like a very serious, like historical, like war film. It's amazing. I love it. I watch it pretty regularly. So I would do that as like an extension of what this genre could be. I mean, that one's not really fantasy at all, but it is like that medieval history stuff that I love. So I would say that.
Cool. Excellent suggestions, my friend. I don't think I've seen either of those, so I'll have to check them out. Robin Hood was your version of Robin Hood was directed by who?
Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott. Yeah, Ridley Scott's kind of hit or miss for me, but you're saying that one is one of his better ones?
Ridley Scott's pretty.
Or what do you think about?
Pretty much an auto watch for me. So yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Cool. Well, I will definitely give that one a watch.
Also, fair warning on
buddy.
Beastmaster. It's like don't watch it with kids.
Cool. Fair enough. All right, buddy. I think that brings us to our final bit of the podcast where we're going to talk about what movie we're watching next. To me, sort of a toss-up between The Monkey and Barbarian for you. And I think I'm going to go with Barbarian. I liked The Monkey, but I loved Barbarian. Okay. And if you like Barbarian, you'll be able to see Weapons, because Weapons is probably just getting onto streaming, because it was in theaters in late August. So it's probably set to hit streaming just in time for October. So if you are into this, you'll be able to probably move right into his next film, Weapons, which was fantastic too. So that's the 2022 American horror film by Zachary Kreger, Barbarian.
All right.
Check it out, folks. We're talking Barbarian next time. Dope. All right, Jeff, is there anything else? Any other business? Do we want to
have fun, be safe,
bid our... Yeah. Listen to Merlin when he tells you something. Quit being horny for your Lancelots in your life. Stick to your man, honey. All right, I think we'll cut it there. Yeah.